roll call because I don't trying to scan through 3 pages of Zoom screens here, but I do have from the mayor's office, Jordan Primikow. I have Connie Kostelak from the Medical College of Wisconsin. From the U.S. Attorney's Office, I have Ken Gales and Stephen Caballero. The Director of the Department of Health and Human Services, Chiquita LeGrant. Tom Reed from the Public Defender's Office, Neil Thorson from the Department of Corrections, myself, and if I missed anybody who just got on, just please announce yourself if you're on the executive committee so that people know you're here and can ask questions if need be later on during the question and answer period.
Johnson here from Milwaukee Security Detention Facility.
Oh, hey, Steve. Good to see you. Thanks. Mandy and I are still trying to go ahead.
Jeff Roman from MOA.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
Hey.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us.
I don't know. I didn't hear you call my name. Michelle Watts from the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs.
Michelle. Thanks for joining us. Okay. So welcome again, everyone. What I'd like to do is just ask anybody from the executive committee if they have any quick highlights from last October till recently. And then I want to make at least one announcement, maybe 2. Anybody have anything pressing that they would like to tell the group here today?
This is Connie. I'll just mention that we have a number of different efforts underway to, with the new overdose public health and safety team grant that was awarded through the Bureau of Justice Assistance to Milwaukee County through the Medical Examiner's Office. That work is just getting off the ground, as well as some collaborative efforts to look at a public health and safety approach to address some of the violence issues. So those things are moving forward, I think, relatively rapidly. So we'll have continued updates for the full group. And then we've also got some additional research efforts underway, particularly surrounding homicides and violence and the relationship to COVID. So we'll continue to push information forward as that work gets completed.
Wonderful. Thank you, Connie, for all your work on that. I don't see our new superintendent of the House of Corrections on here, but I do want to let everyone know that Chantel Jewell is our new superintendent. She joined our executive committee last week, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to formally introduce her, but we do have a new superintendent, and she's been collaborating with us about those things impacting the House of Correction. And I would have to say from our last meeting with her, there are no COVID positive individuals in the House of Correction at this time. So that's fantastic. And that's, again, due to her leadership and the leadership of those at the House of Correction. The other announcement I have is that the Race, Equity, and Procedural Justice Committee that works with the CJC is hosting, along with Black Lens and Gerard Blank's presentation Thursday, February 25th at 7. That's tomorrow, and it's entitled Nurturing Resiliency in Our Youth, Disrupting the Pipeline. The guest speakers on the panel will be County Exec David Crowley, Tyshawn Wardlaw, Director of Growing Up Milwaukee, Sean Wilson, Smart Justice Campaign Manager at the ACLU, Judge Joseph Donald, Wisconsin Court of Appeals, T.R. Williams, Deputy Director of External Affairs Office of Governor Evers, and our moderator will be our new Judge Brittany Grayson. And I want to thank Judge Carl Ashley, who is the lead on that committee, the Race, Equity, and Procedural Justice Committee, and is trying to make sure that that committee stays strong and moves forward. But it's an amazing collaboration with Black Lens. They will be discussing the film Growing Up Milwaukee as part of the issues related to trying to disrupt the school to prison pipeline. So I think Mandy has put the link in the chat for anybody who wants to join that event tomorrow again at 7 o'clock. Thanks, Mandy. All right, those are my updates right now. Let's segue into the MacArthur Foundation grant. The MacArthur Foundation Safety and Justice Challenge has awarded Milwaukee County an additional $1.34 million grant to continue building on our local efforts to reduce safely our Milwaukee jail population. Also working to advance racial equity and look at more holistic and restorative practices and alternatives to incarceration. I'm pleased to introduce Erin Perkins, who is our Safety and Justice Challenge Manager with the CJC, to give us a brief overview of what that new grant dollars entails and how we're going to work with the community to make sure that we effectuate what we need to do for the outcomes for the MacArthur Foundation. Erin?
Thank you for the introduction, Chief. So my name is Erin Perkins. I am the Safety and Justice Challenge Project Manager, and this morning I will be giving you an overview of the sustainability grant that we just received from the MacArthur Foundation. So Mandy, if you could start the PowerPoint presentation. Excellent. And we can go to the first slide. So I just wanted to give some background information to the group for those who are unfamiliar with the Safety and Justice Challenge. So Milwaukee is one of 51 jurisdictions that's currently funded by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation to do two things. There's two goals of the Safety and Justice Challenge. One of them is to decrease the unnecessary use of local jails, and the other is to reduce racial and ethnic disparities in the criminal justice system. So you'll notice as you look at the map of other sites across the country, there are some that are orange, some that are gray. Milwaukee is an implementation site. So I think that's the ones that are in orange are the implementation sites, and then the ones that are in gray are the innovation sites. The difference is that innovation sites, they implement fewer strategies, and they get fewer, or they get a less or smaller pot of funds to be able to implement strategies that implementation sites do. But we're all ultimately funded by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation to achieve the two goals. Next slide. So Milwaukee has been part of the Safety and Justice Challenge since 2015. We were one of the initial 11 sites that were part of what we call the SJC network. So in 2015, the first phase of the Safety and Justice Challenge really focused on planning and developing site-specific strategies. So each of those 51 jurisdictions has strategies that are specific to their own key drivers of incarceration in their own jurisdiction. So our strategies in Milwaukee are not the same as the ones in Philly or the ones in Los Angeles, the ones in Houston. They're all different and specific to each jurisdiction. So in 2016, between 2016 and 2018, we were in SJC phase 2. So that was when we received funding from the MacArthur Foundation and technical assistance to implement the strategies that were developed and planned in phase 1. That funding and support continued into phase 3 between 2019 and 2020, although the strategies did slightly shift and include more work around reentry during the third phase of the Safety and Justice Challenge. And we are now entering into phase 4, which is what the sustainability announcement is related to. So phase 4, which will be another 2 years of funding, will be focused on long-term sustainability and racial equity, as the Chief Judge mentioned. So that meant that this go round, the award amounts are smaller. The foundation is pushing sites to shift any projects and strategies that we have under the Safety and Justice Challenge onto different funding. So what that means for us is that our application was really built around sustaining the things that had already been done in the previous phases. But what we also did was we articulated a separate racial equity strategy this go around. So in previous phases, We collected data around racial equity and collected data around different disparities in the criminal justice system. But in this phase, especially given the disparity trends that we've seen across SJC sites, including Milwaukee, we really wanted to give that strategy the attention that it deserves and really break it out from the other work. So this go around, in addition to some strategies that had been featured in other SJC phases, we've also now included a specific strategy around racial equity. Next slide. So just to give you some background or some context of what the jail population has looked like over the last several years of our involvement with MacArthur Foundation. So you'll see back in May of 2016, which is roughly when we started collecting monthly jail data for Milwaukee County using a template that was provided by one of the data partners for the Safety and Justice Challenge. So we started off with a jail population that was around 2,300. The jail population had in previous years been higher than that. I want to say around 2008, the jail population was closer to the 3,000 mark. Over the course of the Safety and Justice Challenge, you can see that the jail population has declined. So for each of our SJC phases, we've had to set different targets that we have to meet by the end of those 2 years. What you'll notice is that by the end of 2019, we were able to meet the target that we had for SJC phase 3, which was to reach a jail population of 1,833. So we did achieve that prior to COVID, but of course in early 2020, around March, that's when you see a significant drop off in our jail population. And that's in reaction to trying to decrease the jail population to prevent the transmission of COVID-19 in the jail. So there's a noticeable drop off in 2020, and that drop off has since, for the most part, maintained throughout 2020. So in this next phase, we'll be looking to keep our jail population under 1,590, and that just accounts for some different system backlogs that we've experienced in 2020. Next slide. So we have 4 strategies that we're going to be working to advance over the next couple years. So 3 of these are ones that existed in previous SJC phases, and then one of them, of course, is new. So case processing is a strategy that we had in phase 3. Expanded data is a strategy that we've had since phase 2 of the Safety and Justice Challenge. Mental health diversion is another strategy. It's been called other names like post-booking stabilization. There's been some work with the crisis assessment response teams in previous phases, but it's all sort of under the umbrella of mental health diversion at this point, which is really geared towards identifying people who have mental health needs and connecting them to community-based resources. And then lastly, as we discussed earlier, the racial equity strategy has been broken out so that receives additional attention and resources. So that is its own standalone strategy this go round. And in the center of all of this work, our goal is to make sure that community perspectives, and especially the perspectives of people with lived experience with the system, are included. So going forward in this next phase, those will be some of the priorities that we have for the Safety and Justice Challenge, is really centering community engagement in all of this work. Next slide. So at this stage, I'm just going to quickly go through what some of the different pieces are of some of these strategies and what the goals are of each strategy are. So one is case processing. So the goal of case processing is really to address inefficiencies in the system. So to make sure that you don't have cases that are languishing in the system due to various inefficiencies and gaps. One of the strategies that we've had under case processing has been the Early Interventions in Domestic Violence Deferred Prosecution Agreement program. Those are both programs that are really geared towards diverting cases out of sort of traditional prosecution and helping to connect people, especially people that have had certain domestic violence cases, to Alma-centered treatment programming so that we can disrupt cyclical family violence. We also started a court reminder program in phase 3. It's especially important now with all of the backlogs in the criminal justice system with COVID. People have had some of their hearings delayed. And so to make sure that people don't miss hearings or they're confused about whether they have to show up in person or virtually, we just wanted to make sure that we maintain that program so that people didn't miss their hearings for court. So that program will continue. And lastly, this is based on a model that we've seen across, it's a successful model that's been seen across other SJC sites, is having a jail population review team. So we bring together partners from across different criminal justice agencies, and they meet to look through a list of people who are in custody to identify people who can be safely released and monitored out in the community, so that we don't have people who are sitting in custody who don't need to be there. So that's been done in other jurisdictions to maintain a safe level of incarceration in other jurisdictions. And we've also brought that model here, especially in light of COVID and just the importance of making sure that we don't have people in custody if they don't really need to be there. Next slide. So with expanded data, the focus is really on making sure that we understand trends in our jail population, that we are tracking our progress and holding ourselves accountable for what we said we would do, and that we're informing policy with accurate data. So a lot of this work is really going to be built around building the case for sustainability. So making sure that we are doing a cost benefit analysis so that we know that we're really getting our money's worth out of safety and justice challenge work, and that we know that we're having the intended impact that we initially planned to have with the safety and justice challenge. We also want to do research both with Wisconsin Policy Forum and with the Medical College of Wisconsin to evaluate what the public safety impact has been of COVID with all the different policies and protocols that have been put in place. Public safety was definitely a priority as those strategies were being put into place, but we also want to make sure that we have data to back up that none of these strategies have had any unintended consequences for public safety. So we will work with our academic institutions and our policy partners to make sure that we have data to support that these strategies have had their intended impacts and not detrimentally affected public safety. And overall, over the next couple of years, we will continue to collect information about key drivers of incarceration in Milwaukee and also racial and ethnic disparities, but we'll also be taking a close look at COVID trends. Next slide, please. Mental health diversion will continue. This is a strategy that has significant community support behind it, as well as significant support from system leaders and system stakeholders. So it's really geared towards identifying people in the jail who have behavioral health needs and linking them to community-based resources. We currently staff the program. We have a behavioral health division liaison who works in the jail to conduct assessments and connect people to behavioral health services out in the community. And then in this next phase, we'll also be funding a staff person to help work with people who are in state behavioral health facilities, and they'll be returning back to the community and just working to make sure that the treatment plans that are developed on a state level are followed through when people come back into Milwaukee. Next slide. And lastly, and this is a significant haul, a pretty lofty strategy that we have in place for this next phase of the Safety and Justice Challenge, but really this entire racial equity strategy is geared towards bringing together system and community partners to measurably reduce disparities. So we don't just want to do a bunch of activities, we want to make sure that in data we can demonstrate that we have had a significant impact on racial disparities in the Milwaukee County criminal justice system. So for us to do this, it was really important that we had additional staffing to be able to support this work. So we will be hiring a racial equity coordinator to support the racial equity strategy and help to coordinate some of these different pieces, especially the decision point analysis work. The decision point analysis is really pulling together both system and community partners to look at the system at its various decision-making points, from the point of arrest through supervision, to see where disparities happen, to what extent they occur, and think about what decisions are made at each of those points that can potentially lead to disparate outcomes by race. So that is something that's recommended by MacArthur Foundation, as well as its technical assistance providers like Burns Institute. So we will be hiring a racial equity coordinator to be able to coordinate that decision point analysis work. We'll also be developing a criminal justice, or a CJC, strategic plan and applying a racial equity lens to that. We'll be working with an organization called Everyday Democracy, which is a technical assistance provider that works with MacArthur Foundation to be able to implement that and make sure that there is significant community input, as well as input from frontline criminal justice staff about what our priorities as a CJC should be. And lastly, we will be relaunching a 6-part criminal justice learning series. We did create the framework for the criminal justice learning series, and it launched in March of 2020, but I think we all know what happens when you launch things in March of 2020. So we will be looking to relaunch that in a virtual format so that people can learn more about each of the different decision points and different partners who are around the table in the criminal justice system. So that's my last slide. I will, there is probably, or there may be some questions about the community subgrants. We did have funding built in for community subgrants under SJC phase 3. Those will be released soon. Unfortunately, I don't have a set deadline. The big obstacle for us has been trying to make sure that we secure a fiscal agent who's able to release those quickly to our community partners. So that's what the holdup has been for us. But we have within the last week had a meeting with a new fiscal agent, and it looks like that's actually going to be a good arrangement for us to be able to move forward with the subgrants. So they will be coming out soon. I just don't have a set release date for those. You'll also see a 1-pager coming out within the next month or so, just giving the same kind of overview of the Safety and Justice Challenge and the work that's been done to date. And then I will also, at the end of this presentation, share a link to the Safety and Justice Challenge page on the CJC website so that you can stay up to date on the things that are going on with the initiative. And with that, I will turn things back over to the Chief Judge unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Erin. I think just given the volume of work that you're doing, thank you for keeping us organized on this grant. Thank you for that presentation. It really zeroed in on, I think, what we're doing, the gist of what we're doing. Anybody have any questions for Erin at this time? See, you did so well.
Yeah, and my contact information is on the CJC webpage. So if people want to reach out and ask any questions, you can definitely feel free to email me and call me.
Great. Thank you, Erin, so very much. If anybody, like I said, I'm like looking through 3 screens. If there are questions, just speak up, and or you can put them in the chat and I will try to read those off to people so that you can get your questions answered about any of these. All right, let's segue into presentation and updates by Youth Justice Milwaukee. I'm pleased to introduce Charlene Moore, Executive Director of Urban Underground, and Ann McCullough from Youth Justice Milwaukee. Both of these women are very, very focused on our youth, and they are going to discuss today the COVID-19 Impact Project, Justice for Emerging Adults webinar series, and then also a grant that they obtained to work with young female adults and teens in the justice system. So I'm going to turn it over to Charlene. Thank you both so very much for being here and all the hard work that you've done. You're amazing. Thank you, Charlene.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Judge Trigiano and team, for just this opportunity to just give you all a brief update. We won't be before you long. We have some information. We'll put some information in the chat as well. If you can just quickly introduce yourself while I get the presentation started.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. As Judge said, my name is Ann McCullough. Some of you know me as Ann McCullough McCaig. I've been with Youth Justice Milwaukee as the campaign manager and kind of strategy organizer for the past couple of years. And recently, through a partnership with Kids Forward in Madison, we've been able to create a Youth Justice Wisconsin level of statewide coalition building, so we can bring what we're learning in Milwaukee to the rest of the state. And so I toggle back and forth between those two things.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, you know, I always start out with just an opportunity to, and this is probably one of, I have a few quotes that I love, but, you know, when I'm doing youth justice work, I always think about the young people that I'm serving. And, you know, this quote by Frederick Douglass, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men," says a lot, right? That we still definitely have a lot of work to do. And I just want to take a minute just to, sort of just center us. And so it's not just an opportunity for you all to just come on, listen, take in and not be able to give back. This is that opportunity. So in the chat, pick one of these questions and then, just put a response in the chat as again, we go through the presentation. But first question is, what do young people need to be successful? I ask people that all the time. If we're able to look at what is it that young people need, right? Or if you answer the question, what does a world without prisons look like? And, for some of us, it may be hard for us to envision that, but it's an opportunity for us to say, if we had all the resources, all the tools that we need, and if we eliminate this sort of institution that, is not, very humane at times, what could that world look like? So put some of your comments in the chat for me. And, when I always answer the first question, what do young people need to be successful? And I always say love. Young people need love in order to be successful. And if there's anything coming in, just because I cannot find my chat because I'm screen sharing, share with us just a few responses that came in the chat.
I can do that.
Oh, yes, thank you,
So
Judge.
I think you nailed it with love. Support and love seems to be the most chatted. Hope, hope, opportunity, listened to, exposed to better opportunities and experience, patience, consistency, stability, home. Let's see. I think I've got the gist of it, but
That's the gist. That's beautiful. And that's beautiful. And those are things that are not foreign. Anytime I ask anybody that question, it comes up, the same thing comes up over and over and over again. And, and the same can probably be for question number 2. What does a world without prisons look like? Love and hope and, just this opportunity for people to live out their life and their full destiny. So it's one of those things where we have to keep that in the forefront as to why we do the work that we're doing. If we, again, I just want to share, we're just going to cover 5 really quick areas, give some update on where we are with Act 185, share a little bit about the Raise the Age Wisconsin Coalition, who is doing some phenomenal work. Also, just a little bit background on WAJ, what they're doing to eliminate juvenile life without parole. And we'll give some updates around the COVID-19 Impact Project. And last but not least, we'll give some background about the Justice for Emerging Adults webinar. And so for some of you that are, familiar with Act 185, this will just be a quick refresher. As far as just sort of the overview of what Act 185 was supposed to do, on the Department of Corrections side, it was supposed to close Lincoln Hills by July of this year, 2021. At that time, they also wanted to establish 2 Type 1 facilities, the expansion of Mendota. Currently, right now, Mendota has about 29 beds, and they wanted to expand that by an additional, I want to say 59 more beds. And then the counties were supposed to create what are called secure residential care centers for children and youth. And so, again, these were opportunities for this legislation that wasn't perfect, but it moved us toward closing Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake. Really quick, when we just, a lot of numbers, a lot of, not letters, but a lot of words in front of you. But I just wanted to give you a visual of the expansion cost. It was going to be about $110 million to put into 4 counties, Milwaukee, Dane, Racine, and Brown, that was supposed to create secure residential care centers. We were supposed to have money for a state-run Type 1 facility. And we were also supposed to, again, have the expansion of Mendota by a tune of about $59 million. And a lot of times, the reason why I show this particular slide is to really just talk about the amount of money that goes into corrections and that goes into incarcerating, in this case, young people. And, we're saying, there are lots more ways for us to spend dollars. We advocated for for them to take out the $25 million for SJOs, because it's not a distinction that we need to have. We can support young people in the same way. So it made us, it moved us to having, a few recommendations that we said, you know what, let's invest in young people. The figures that you all just saw was only centered around bricks and mortar. We want to invest in young people and not just facilities. We want to also look at reducing the root causes of youth incarceration. If we spend more of our time targeting, putting together programs, moving dollars in the right place, we'll be able to really tailor those sorts of investments. Also, invest in positive youth development services in schools and youth settings. Young people are an extension of their community, and the opportunities that they get to engage in other meaningful opportunities, we want to make sure those sort of positive youth development strategies are focused on the areas where youth are the most. Invest in strategies that build better policies and practices based on lived experiences. We cannot forget that folks with lived experiences have the answers that we need. We have to make sure that young people, as well as adults that were incarcerated at a young age, are at the table, providing us with those strategies and giving us those policy recommendations. Last two, and again, we can't say enough around the investment in mental health options, both on the young people side and both on the young adult and adult side. We have to do a better job of investing in mental health options. And again, last but not least, when we talk about diversion, and when we talk about front end strategies, we don't want to start implementing strategies when a young person is already incarcerated. We want to figure out what are those diversion opportunities that, again, we can invest into that's going to keep young people from getting deeper and deeper into the system. And again, lots of words here, but I want, I'll post the link to the article, but this is directly taken from the governor's budget recommendations. I'm not going to read all of this, but I wanted to take a few points to just say, you know what, these are some things that we need to do in order to close Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake, for the counties to have secure residential care centers. There's a few things that, need to happen. And there's a few things that the governor is recommending that we've been not only Youth Justice Milwaukee, but other amazing advocacy organizations that have been, this has been their life's work. So raise the age. It's so important that we begin to, this is just the starting point, raising the age from 17 to 18. We have to get 17-year-olds back into the youth justice system just because of the science, brain development, and the needs of young people. They're better able to be served in the youth system. Removing no, that's not the one I want to say. Eliminating type 1 facilities. Again, there is no need to build a separate facilities for serious juvenile offenders. And so eliminating that type 1 distinction, in addition to eliminating the SJO status, serious juvenile offender program, is again going to be based on better evidence-based practices that again recognizes the needs of young people. One of the really great things is also prohibiting the use of restraints, especially when a young person is appearing before a judge. They shouldn't have to be put in front of a judge in shackles. So prohibiting the use of that was, again, something that it's just a policy that can be changed so that we bring humanity back to young people. Status offenses was also another one, using detention center for a status offense. So if a young person is truant from school, instead of putting them in detention, let's have some specialized programs and services for those young people. Another thing, right now, the current delinquency age starts at age 10. When I tell people that, they're floored, they're shocked. And I'm just like, yeah, we start at age 10 here. And so it's a recommendation to move that from 10 to 12. Again, some other really great recommendations also on the adult side that overlaps with some of the youth recommendation, especially where the money is tied to. One of the primary things that I want to say is that the governor is looking to provide more resources for alternatives, for community-based alternatives. Those are things that we need more across the state. And the raise the age for those that are interested in plugging in. The Raise the Age Wisconsin Coalition is a consortium of different folks across the states that's looking to again bring the 17-year-olds back into the juvenile justice system. And so it's one of these, how do we figure out how to move all the 17-year-olds and not just exceptions, not just, oh, well, we're going to, have these sorts of exceptions. No, we want to really broad. We want to cast our net wide and say, you know what, all 17-year-olds need to be brought back into the adult systems. Again, there are overarching exceptions, but it's a coalition, and we'll put the link in the chat. It's a coalition of individuals that are, again, just doing some incredible work to bring youth back into the 17-year-olds back into the youth system. I think this is my slide as well, just really quick. WAJ, Wisconsin Alliance for Youth Justice, is a collaborative for families and children and young people involved in the justice system to be positive advocates. And their primary goal is to abolish juvenile life without parole. We have young people that were sentenced at 16, 17 year olds that are now spending life. And when they go up for parole, they're not being provided with a meaningful opportunity to get out, again, with their maturity, with their age. And we're saying, you know what, that's not right. It's not, young people should not have a life sentence for, harm that they may have caused as a youth. So this coalition is looking to really put in some work to change that status. And Ann, I'll let you jump in from here.
Thank you very much. I always love listening to Charlene, so now I got to focus on being on. Yeah, this is really exciting work. The criminal state of children is incredibly sad, and it is, and so the fact that we have to be here today is not right. However, I think we are in a phase of the work where we can move to build broader coalitions and promote a long-term commitment to education that will allow system change to happen at a more comprehensive level. So one of the projects that we're doing through the Youth Justice Wisconsin Partnership is a COVID-19 impact project to reduce the spread of COVID-19 within facilities across the state for all ages, congregate care. The guidelines are, don't have so many people in those facilities, right? So at the youth level, we studied, we created a survey and reached out across the state to counties to see how they were implementing the COVID-19 prevention guidelines and what kind of impact that was having. This is real. Looking at the dark orange shows the counties that responded to our survey. What's that?
You're going in and out a little bit. I don't know if you may have to turn off the video sometimes. That helps a little bit.
I will do that. Thank you for letting me know. Apologies for that. The map that you're looking at is the dark orange areas are the counties that responded to the survey and participated in this short-term project that was funded through the Governor's Juvenile Justice Council. So that's just to share, and all of those responses were very positive, and there is interest in continuing collaboration around the positive impact of COVID-19 protocols on the use of secure custody. What we have found is that indeed those protocols limiting the number of youth that are in detention, reserving detention for an imminent high public safety risk significantly reduces the number of youth who are detained. And the graph in front of you, the bar graph with the red circle around it, The blue is the number of referrals to youth justice intake, which means detention. Last year in May 2019 of May of 2019, and the red bar next to it is the number of referrals in May of 2020. The only significant difference between those two dates is COVID-19 protocols. So in the phase 2 of work, we got additional funding to go back and look at counties at a local level on what are the factors that related to this significant decline and what does it take to keep it like that. So the project was designed around qualitative surveys and stakeholder interviews, as well as quantitative data from a statewide perspective. This quote is an example of a qualitative data point that we received that was a theme in the data. It says, we need more coordination with the court systems around appropriate response to youth to reduce confinement, separating behavior that places the community at risk from behavior that is simply a technical violation. Rules of probation set unrealistic expectations for some kids. That's from a youth justice supervisor in another county. So those kinds of responses do indicate that youth have been over-referred to detention. We all know this, the people that are on this call, but having this type of data, especially the qualitative, the state agencies are telling us that that's what they need to make change that's more comprehensive. And we know that comprehensive change is what reduces racial disparities in the long term, not the incremental work. So that is that. We will make sure that you guys have access to the report and stay tuned for more. The other project that we've been able to get going with through the Youth Justice Wisconsin Partnership is a Justice for Emerging Adults webinar. We were invited to participate in a national convening around the policy changes that benefit emerging adults, individuals ages 18 to 24. They reflect the highest, worst racial disparities of any population within the criminal justice system. And so if we do targeted advocacy and racial disparity reduction with this population, we will make a huge change in the quality of life in the state of Wisconsin. We hope that this webinar series starts a long-term conversation that is successful in creating a learning community that is broad-based, and that we can work together to reduce racial disparities in this age group. So again, we'll also make sure that you have access to those registration links so that you can join us. They are free of charge, and each panel will have a national speaker, a Wisconsin speaker, and a lived experience speaker, and have question and answer. Whew, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So, again, we weren't going to be before you long. I want to end with my young person who has, been locked up now for 6+ years. Actually, this is actually going on his 7th year, and this is his last year out. And so I'm excited that he'll be home in November, but it starts his recovery and his healing to, to being able to live out his full self. So Ariane will, be back in the community, and as his community has supported him during the time that he has been locked up, he's so blessed to have that sort of support, because we know not everybody has that sort of support. We know that we will continue to support him as, again, he continues his recovery and his healing process when he comes out in November. So I end with James Baldwin's quote, "For these are all our children. We will all profit by or pay for what they become." And this just is testament to the work ahead and the work at hand, that we still have a lot of work to do, especially when it comes to equity, especially when it comes to, looking at what needs to change, what are the policy shifts, what are the targeted programs, what the governor has, recommended. That's going to take some work to get there, because he can't just wave a magic wand and, everything is, the way that he wants it. And so it's going to take each and every one of us to do our part to make sure that we create a system for each and every single young person, a young adult, an adult that, you know, have been caught in the traps of, the system, and, you know, continue to figure out ways to support them. So thank you all so much for your time, and we look forward to more opportunities ahead.
Charlene and Ann, thank you so very much for your dedication to this work. And it's much appreciated that you came to present today. And I think, Ann, you put a lot of the information on the website if people are interested. So thank you. Questions for them? If you do, just speak up. Yeah.
Judge, I forgot to share information about the girls grant that we received, so
Go
I
ahead.
can do that if there's time.
Yes, please.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I'll turn my camera off to improve my sound. Yeah, we were lucky enough to be working with the Wisconsin Department of Justice to apply for an OJJDP grant reducing risk of girls in the juvenile justice system. The three recipients are Youth Justice Milwaukee, My Sister's Keeper, and Represent Milwaukee. Our proposal is to work together to provide more positive girl space in the community that's not based in, not focused on facilities, but relational space, community space, and also to really add capacity to the advocacy, the system advocacy needed to change the response to girls to keep them out of the system. So this comes after 2 years of working with an ad hoc work group at the county and the National Girls Initiative, and we look forward to this 3-year program.
Great, thanks, Ann. I think someone wants access to the PowerPoint that you guys have. Can you get it to Mandy and then Mandy can get it out to people? That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Great, thanks. I know I got a call about 3 or 4 weeks ago now from Mark Mertens from DYFS, and he had indicated that the number of our youth at Lincoln Hills was down to around the 20s. And Copper Lake for girls was down to, I think, 0, at least from Milwaukee County, which is fabulous. And I know you guys help support that work. So thank you so much. We're moving in the right direction, right?
That's it.
Okay. Other questions for Charlene and Ann? Great job. Thank you guys very, very much. All right.
We do have a question here
Oh.
from Sean, just asking Charlene and Ann what individuals can do to help support their efforts.
Oh, thank you so much. Fantastic questions. Please get in touch with us. Again, it's figuring out what people's preferences are. There's so many different initiatives to get plugged into, whether it's Raise the Age, whether it's the work that we're doing with youth justice. There are lots of work groups that are needed for just, community partners and, community members just to be a part of. So please shoot us an email. We'll throw our email in there, get in touch with us so that we can because everybody is different. We'll talk with you one-on-one, see what your capacity and needs are, and plug you in.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't think there's other questions, so we will move into audience discussion and any questions and any announcements. I'm going to just throw one more thing out there that I forgot to do, and I just want to draw attention to Joe Elwinger, who's on, I think, here. He's been so instrumental in pushing forward and holding the potential for expansion of mental health treatment courts. So we've been meeting with him and his group and others. And I know Joe will keep us true to form in pushing towards different responses to people with mental health disorders in our community. So thank you, Joe, for that. I just wanted to shout out to you for all that you've done and the support for mental health treatment courts. Other announcements, questions, issues, either raise them in the chat or speak up. We'll call on you.
I just have a general question. Are there any resources available for victims when they're involved with a domestic violence case, and their rights as far as staying in the home when they are married? Any resources, community resources that can assist? I thought of tenant rights, but that wasn't helpful.
Michelle, thank you for that question, and I'll just have anybody jump in who wants to, but I think certainly we have different domestic violence advocacy organizations in the community, including Sojourner Family Peace Center, Alma Center, and there's a variety of others that might be able to support and help what you're talking about. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, and I'll just say that those are some that I use, but apparently they weren't able to help. So I was thinking, is it family law that the victim needs to talk to about rights of the spouse putting them out of the home during this domestic violence issue? So thank you, Judge.
Yeah. Thoughts on that for Michelle? Michelle, why don't you just give me a call and we'll have a conversation later on about maybe the somewhat closer to the specifics of what you're asking. I might be able to answer that or at least direct you, okay?
Okay, awesome.
I'll put my general phone number in the chat so that you can have whoever answers send you to me. Other questions?
You know, Judge, this is Tom Reed. You know, one thing that might be valuable for us going forward in another meeting, but might be partly responsive to the question is we have agencies like Legal Action and Legal Aid. I know Pete Kniesny is on the call this morning. Central Legal is another, community resource. There's the Mobile Legal Clinic, which is something that the Milwaukee Bar Association runs. We have a justice center in the courthouse that even in the pandemic times is trying to be accessible to people. And the Milwaukee Bar Association does have a line that you can call and they will refer you to lawyers. In this case, it would presumably be some combination of lawyers who work in that area of evictions and property rights and family law. So I think we might have a valuable presentation to our Community Justice Council attendees to kind of just map out, what are those resources? Who do you go to? And maybe the different agencies could, provide us a little context and guidance so that when we have that presentation, people could understand what's the time to call, what's, the capacity of these agencies. I'm sure I'm missing one or more groups that might actually be helpful, because I think we have a shortage of necessary services for sure, but we do have some services, and I think it would be worth taking a few minutes and just providing all of that to everybody who's here.
Yeah, Tom, I think that's a great idea. And I was also going to get Michelle's email and or address to, I think we have a form at the courts that we hand to people with legal resources on them and other resources. So, but I think that's a great idea. All right, other questions, announcements?
If I could come on here, Judge Trigiano, Joel Wenger.
Yep, Joe, absolutely.
I appreciate your mentioning the efforts of Micah and Wisdom and other groups to establish a full-fledged mental health treatment court. I think everyone is aware of the fact that we have a pilot mental health treatment court that has proven the effectiveness of such a court, but many, many others that are eligible for that and would benefit from it if we had a full-fledged mental health treatment court. And the governor's proposed budget does include an expansion of funding for TAD programming in the second year of the budget, an additional $15 million, and an encouragement that the TAD funding, the TAD legislation be amended to include mental health treatment courts, but that amendment has to be done by the legislature. And here we're waiting until the second year for any expansion. So if any, we're at the stage of the budget formation that is, in flux as the Joint Finance Committee picks up and can certainly make something more of it. So if people have contacts with members of the Joint Finance Committee, it would be great to get the message to them that we need the TAD programming funding expanded in the first year of the biennial budget, and we need the legislation that would include mental health treatment courts under the TAD funding. So we're working hard on it, and any help we can get would be appreciated.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you, thank you. We certainly don't have to go to 11. I think people are probably, my guess is, zoomed out a bit. So any final comments? Mandy, anything from you?
Judge, I've been working quickly behind the scenes to try and upload the PowerPoints to our website so I can include them in the chat before we all go, but they will be linked on the meetings page of the CJC website momentarily. So if people are wanting to take a look at them yet today, they can be able to do so soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mandy. Okay. Well, appreciate all the hard work of everyone here. Be safe, stay healthy, reach out to each other for support. Take care of yourselves. We need you. And have a great rest of the weekend until we meet again. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Charlene.
Great seeing everyone today.
Mandy and Tom, you wanted to stay on?
Have a great week, everyone. Thank you.